Bible study, Matthew chapter 2, starting with verse 1. Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star when it rose, and have come to worship him. Now I want to pause here for a second. If you look over in Numbers 24:17, that's where we see that prophecy. It says, A star shall come out of Jacob. So I want to talk about a couple of things here. First, let's look at the wise men. Now, we always see at Christmas time, they show 3 wise men. And do you ever wonder why they think there were only 3 wise men? I mean, think about it for a second. If you, let's see. If you flip over to Isaiah 60, verse 6, it tells us that it would be a multitude so great that their camels would cover the entire land. In Psalms 72:10, we read that kings would present or bring presents. They would bring gold, which represents that he would be a king. Frankincense, an incense that would represent that he would also act as a priest. And myrrh was actually an embalming fluid that they used to preserve bodies, and this was to represent that he would die for his people. Verse 3. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. And they told him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet, And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. So here's Herod asking, he's troubled when he sees this enormous crowd of wise men. He's asking, where's this child supposed to be born? Now, Herod probably didn't believe the prophecies, but he was worried that the Jews would, and that they would pick a child that was born there around this time. He was worried that this king would cause them to rebel, and he wanted to squash it before that it even got started. So I figured if they came back and told him who they thought the Messiah was, that he would just have him killed, and that's why he was so angry when they never came back. We'll see that in a second. Now, the question about where did these wise men come from and what made them wise is a good question. In Genesis chapter 25, verse 6, we read that Abraham sent the children of his concubines eastward, and it is likely that these wise men were actually the descendants of Abraham. And wise men are mentioned in the east in 1 Kings 4, verse 30. It talks about these wise men, and it's probably the descendants of Abraham. So let's see, verse 7. Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, that I too may come and worship him. Ha, 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 ha. Yeah, I'm sure. After listening to the king, they went on their way. And behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came and to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. I want to pause here for a second. Notice they fell down and worshipped him. They worshiped Jesus. They didn't fall down and worship Mary. Just a little side note there. Then opening their treasures, they offered him gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country another way. So here's God speaking to men through dreams again. Second time we've seen that in just the first 2 chapters of Matthew. Verse 13. Now when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Here's the third time. And said, Rise, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him. And he rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophets, out of Egypt I have called my son. Now I want to pause here for a second. If you flip over to Numbers 24:8, we read that it says that he will bring him out of Egypt. So this was a direct fulfillment of that prophecy. Verse 16, then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, he became furious, and he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem and in all the region who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had ascertained from the wise men. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping and loud lamentation. Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be comforted because they are no more. Now, an interesting thing here, I've had this arise from time to time when I'm trying to share the gospel. People say, well, nobody ever heard about this mass killing that took place by Herod of all these children. How come there's no record of it? Well, so what? There's no record of it. Jews were being slaughtered by the Romans all the time during that time period. The Bethlehem killings wouldn't have even be back page news on the Roman Star. It would have just, hardly even, nobody would even notice. It was routine business as usual. Verse 19, but when Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, Rise and take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead. And he rose and took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel. When he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea in the place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And being warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee. And he went and lived in a city called Nazareth, so that what was spoken by the prophets might be fulfilled, that he would be called a Nazarene. Now I want to pause here for a second. Verse 23 is where a lot of people often get confused. It gets kind of jumbled here, and it sounds like that Matthew is saying that the prophets foretold that he would be a Nazarene. And that's not what Matthew is intending to say here. What he's basically meaning here is that that he escaped into Nazareth so that he would live to go on and fulfill the prophets' spoken prophecies. You follow me? All of them, not just talking about being a Nazarene. It's talking about he escaped into Nazareth so that he would live and go on to fulfill all the prophecies which were spoken by the prophets. And because of this, Matthew said they called him a Nazarene. So whenever you hear a Bible critic say, well, it says he would be called a Nazarene by the prophets, and there's no prophecies in the Old Testament that says he'd be called a Nazarene. And that's because that's not what Matthew meant in this context. You follow me? So thank you for studying with me, and until next time, God bless.